The dull hum of summer cicadas filled the quiet confines of Jake Sutherland's quaint little house in Stonecrest, Georgia. A sturdy edifice, much like the man himself, with walls that had seen more sunsets than most. The verdant landscape stretched beyond the horizon, an artist's palette of luscious greens, kissed occasionally by the laziness of the southern sun. It was an idyllic portrait, marred only by the specter of a brooding Gothic structure in the distance, the local mental asylum. Inside, Jake sat hunched over a worn-out wooden table. The twilight painted an amber halo around him. A worn photograph lay between his hands, its corners crumbled, its colors faded. It was a portrait of a woman with eyes that echoed the serenity of the sea, a hint of a smile caught forever in black and white. His weathered fingers moved gently, tracing lines and figures, putting pieces of a fragmented past back together with a patience that betrayed his stoic exterior. A shrill ring broke the silence. He looked up, the phone on the wall flashing with urgent insistence. He picked up the receiver, and his gruff voice filled the room. "Sutherland!" A frantic voice on the other end reported, "We have another one, Jake. Another identity stolen." His brow furrowed, a ripple of tension in the placidity of his features. "Another patient?" "Yes," the voice confirmed, a hint of nervous anxiety permeating the line. "It's the 5th this month, all of them. They're from the asylum, Jake." His eyes wandered to the ominous structure casting its shadow on the tranquil landscape. "All right, I'll be there," he said, hanging up, his optimism not dented but steeled by the mystery. The photograph on the table caught his eye once more, the woman's face gazing up at him, a silent encouragement, a tether of hope amidst brewing uncertainties. He touched the picture once more, a final whisper of a promise. With a sigh, he rose, donning his coat, a knight readying his armor, unaware of the cosmic chessboard he was stepping onto. Stonecrest Mental Asylum was an anomaly amidst the town's southern charm, its Gothic architecture contrasting against the homely buildings. The closer Jake drew, the more palpable the unease became. Tall iron gates opened to a manicured lawn, betraying the facades of normality that institutions such as these often wore. The receptionist, a middle-aged woman named Martha, greeted Jake with a tight smile. Her eyes betrayed an undercurrent of worry, the burden of her job mirrored in the strain around her pale blue eyes. "They're in the East Wing, Detective," she informed, her voice just above a whisper. As he ventured through the labyrinthine corridors, the walls bore witness to the myriad stories of those housed within, each brick layered with a sheen of silent screams and whispered prayers. Despite the unnerving surroundings, he moved forward with unwavering resolve, his optimism illuminating the dim hallways. In the East Wing, he found them, the victims of the inexplicable theft. Their eyes, vacant, bore into his soul, bodies frail and lost in their own world. The stolen identities were not mere legal constructs, but the essence of their being, their selfhood ripped away, leaving hollow shells. Conducting interviews felt more like monologues, with Jake speaking softly, trying to reach the consciousness buried beneath the empty stairs. He coaxed them with his firm, quiet voice, but most could barely string a coherent sentence together. An orderly named Harvey, a big burly man with kind eyes, shared the odd pattern they'd noticed. "Always during the lunar eclipse, Jake," he stated, his voice barely concealing his unease. "That's when they change." Jake felt a strange chill at Harvey's words, a morose sonnet weaving into the fabric of this case. His gaze lingered on the moon calendar on the wall, its cyclical dance suddenly taking on a sinister rhythm. Leaving the asylum, he carried with him an eerie serenade of silent pleas and unvoiced fears. His optimism, usually his beacon, flickered under the oppressive uncertainty. As he retreated into the descending night, the asylum seemed to watch, its stone facade a mask hiding unspeakable horrors. The town of Stonecrest was cloaked in a dense blanket of night as he returned home. The photograph waited for him, a beacon in the sea of brewing chaos. His hands moved unconsciously towards it, drawing strength from the past, bracing himself for the horrors that awaited in the asylum's abyss. A heavy rain had fallen upon Stonecrest, washing over its quiet streets, its rhythmic patter a somber lullaby for the troubled town. As Jake trudged through the wet gravel path leading to the asylum, he observed the rain-drenched edifice, a specter of human psyche's dark corners. The worn leather of ancient patient records creaked under his grip, their yellowed pages narrating tales of antiquated psychiatric procedures and vanishing patients. The documents served as a chilling testament of the asylum's grim past, of secrets buried under the weight of time and deliberate forgetting. Amidst the cryptic medical jargon, one term echoed across the files: the silent moon. It seemed intertwined with the asylum's history, appearing during eclipses, closely associated with cases of profound identity loss. A cold dread crept upon him. A rational man, he was at odds with the mystical implications, but couldn't ignore the looming pattern. Inside the confines of the East Wing, a single patient named Lucius caught his attention. The man was different, his madness not vacant but vibrant, eyes blazing with an unquenchable fire. When asked about the silent moon, Lucius didn't recoil like the others. Instead, he laughed, a sound that echoed down the somber halls, bouncing off the padded walls with a cruel glee. "The silent moon," he croaked, his voice scratching at the edges of sanity. "It feasts when the earthly moon hides, dining on the minds of the maddened, stealing away who we are." Jake felt a chill run down his spine at the revelation. He found himself staring out the barred window at the darkened sky, the moon hiding behind brooding clouds, a celestial game of hide-and-seek that suddenly bore ominous implications. Returning home, he found himself unnerved. The once comforting silence of his home now echoed with Lucius's maniacal laughter and haunting words. The rain had ceased, leaving a hush that was filled only with the detective's beating heart and the distant hoot of an owl. The photograph on his table now served as a reminder of not only what he sought to repair, but also what was at stake: his identity, his connection to the world. The memories of the woman in the photograph were all under an unseen cosmic threat. His fear of heights, usually a lurking specter, now seemed trivial compared to the vertiginous unknown he was set to explore. As the moon finally peeked from behind the receding clouds, the detective steeled himself for the next step of his investigation: the asylum's tower. As twilight kissed the horizon, bathing stone crest in shades of crimson and gold, Jake found himself at the foot of the asylum's tower. Its grotesque gargoyles stood as the guardians of the abyss, their stone eyes watching him with silent mockery. His heart pounded in his chest, a staccato rhythm echoing his mounting trepidation. Yet he stepped inside, driven by a strange mixture of dread and determination. The air inside the tower hung heavy with primeval dread, a sentient being bearing witness to forgotten horrors. As he climbed the spiraling staircase, his fear of heights gnawed at his sanity. The walls seemed to close in, the wind howled like tortured souls, each groan of the aged structure echoing his internal terror. At the pinnacle, a shock of icy air greeted him, and he found himself face to face with the silent moon. It was unlike anything he had ever seen, a swirling nebula of cosmic terror, its luminescence casting an otherworldly glow. It was an entity not of this dimension, radiating an aura of madness that threatened to drown him. The silent moon pulsed, an ebb and flow of silent screams and lost identities. He could feel it reaching out, tendrils of cosmic horror weaving around his mind, seeking purchase. It probed his memories, gnawing at his fear of heights, feasting on his longing for the woman in the photograph, his desperation to repair a broken past. But he was no ordinary man. His spirit, often silent, now roared with defiance. With a will forged in optimism and courage, he resisted the entity's influence. His mind, his identity, his memories, they were his and his alone. He imagined a barrier, a bastion of his inner strength, holding off the silent moon's invasion. A silent battle waged within the heart of the tower, a dance of cosmic forces and human resilience. And then, as suddenly as it began, the silent moon retracted. a serpentine entity retreating into the ethereal darkness, its luminescence dimming. A mere respite, Jake understood, not a retreat. As he descended the tower, each step echoed his triumph and the chilling knowledge of the eldritch terror residing within the asylum. He emerged into the cool night air, the moon high in the sky, a beautiful yet haunting reminder of the horror he had faced. The next lunar eclipse hung heavily in Stonecrest sky, a spectral theater set for the final act. Jake, bolstered by his recent victory and a night of restless preparation, stood before the asylum, its gothic silhouette a grim reminder of the challenge that awaited him. Inside, the air buzzed with an uncanny energy, an electric undercurrent of anticipation. The patients in the East Wing were more agitated, their vacant gazes replaced with a frenzied anxiety. He could feel it too, an impending climax drawing closer with each tick of the clock. Ascending the tower once again, each step was a testament to his quiet bravery. His earlier dread was replaced with a steely resolve. He felt the silent moon long before he saw it, its cosmic presence pulsating with malignant anticipation. As he reached the peak, he met its ethereal luminescence with a hardened gaze. The silent moon surged forward, a tidal wave of ancient horror. It probed his psyche, lashing against his mental barriers with increased ferocity. The fear of heights, the broken past, each served as a weapon in its arsenal. Yet Jake stood firm, a beacon of resilience amidst the psychological onslaught. The battle stretched on, a maddening symphony of willpower and cosmic terror. His thoughts faltered. Images of the woman in the photograph flickered, teetering on the edge of oblivion. His will, however, did not yield. In the midst of the chaos, he summoned the memory of her smile, her eyes, using them as a shield, holding on to his sanity, his identity, his humanity. As the eclipse reached its peak, the silent moon shrieked, a soundless scream echoing in the recesses of his mind. Then, as suddenly as it had attacked, it withdrew. The nebulous entity receded into the ether, its luminescence dimming to a mere flicker before disappearing altogether. He staggered down the staircase, his body exhausted, but his spirit victorious. He had stared into the abyss and emerged with his identity intact. As he left the asylum, he glanced back at the ominous tower, its dark secrets locked away once more. The tale of Stonecrest, Jake, and the silent moon found its end. A haunting symphony of courage, cosmic horror, and resilience. Yet the end was but a respite. As long as the silent moon lurked in the cosmos, the threat lingered, a shadow in the silent echoes of the asylum's tower. The story ended, but Jake knew his vigil was far from over. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed our content, show your support with a like and subscribe, and stay notified by hitting the bell icon. Expect more cosmic horror from Eldritch Tales Factory, and feel free to explore our other stories. See you in the next video.